What's going on, everyone? So, I am going to get Ashley in here, but I'm excited to go live with you guys and some knowledge bombs with us. So, be prepared for any questions. Ask lots of questions. We love questions. Um, Other than that, I see Wager Fitness joined. What's up? Oh, Megan, that's my girl right there. Okay, so we're just gonna do a quick Q&A style. Those that submitted a question will have precedence. If anybody has a question that comes up, just drop it in the comment box below, and we will get to it. Okay, so let's do a quick recap because I don't know that all my followers know you, and all your followers don't know me. So where you at? What do you do? How do you get massive legs, Ashley? All those things.
That we'll save that question to the end. How about that? Keep people on the live session, I guess.
There you
Um,
go.
so I'm Ashley Vargas. I'm out of Nashville, Tennessee, and I help lifters feel more confident adding weight to their barbell. I work mostly with power lifters, but I do work with some Olympic lifters, and then people who just want to get strong. Um, so I've been coaching for almost 8 years now, both in the group fitness setting and then also one-on-one. Done other things within my fitness career. I also teach cycle, been doing that for 10 years actually. So pretty well-rounded on that side of things. I am a powerlifting competitor as well in the 75 kilogram weight class. Yeah.
Let's go. Yeah. I mean, I don't even know how I followed that. Like, we'll
Oh,
just, we'll just end it there. Ashley's
okay.
that.
Doctor of physical therapy. Let's go.
Okay, so I'm Kaytlyn. I live in Springfield, Missouri. I am a doctor of physical therapy. And then I really just help barbell athletes, so powerlifters and weightlifters, and then the occasional strength athlete who, they might have pain, but they want to return to like under the bar or they have a comp coming up, whatever it is. Um, I help them kind of manage their pain and I always say get pain-free PRs, so that's kind of my goal. I am competitive, so I did a weightlifting comp, my first one in the 71 kilo weight class, and then I have a powerlifting and another weightlifting meet coming up. So
Dang, bro.
um, that's some like super insider information right there. But yeah, and then
You were
we'll
going
be
to
doing
powerlifting meet.
what's that?
I said I didn't know you were going to be doing a powerlifting meet.
I haven't announced it, so this will be the announcement, I guess. But yeah, and then I'm gonna do a super total around February, I think. We're trying to find one a little sooner because I qualified for the Arnold. So
Dang.
yeah, so we have to be a little strategic in the planning, but
Yeah,
that's
for
it. Yeah. So
sure. Have you
I know.
done a super total before?
What's that?
You haven't done a super total before?
No, no.
I haven't done
So
one.
you
Honestly,
what?
the super total terrifies me a little bit. I don't know if I'd ever want to do one.
I was telling somebody like during PT school, it's a 7 year program like total, so you get your bachelor's and then you go straight into a doctorate program. So between that, like I've always been super competitive, like grew up playing sports and typical PT stuff there. um Always wanted to do a powerlifting meet and I just like couldn't, like between PT school and stuff, like anytime I would start to ramp up, like I would get hurt just because there were so many things going on. And then after PT school stopped, or like I graduated, um, I started the business 3 months later, and then also was working at two different hospitals. So like this is the year that I'm just going to do all the comps and yeah,
Well,
finally live life a little bit. So
I'll be cheering you on.
thank you. Yeah. So okay, we got some super awesome people in here. So just a quick recap. For those of you who just joined, drop any questions below in the comment box. Otherwise, Ashley and I are going to get started with the pre-submitted questions. So I think the first one is all you, right?
Sure. So one of the questions that I got was about how to self-handle at a meet. Um, in general, I advise against self-handling. So, and there's a couple of reasons. In my opinion, as a competitive lifter, your goal at either powerlifting or weightlifting meet is to go in with the barbell, and that's all you should be thinking about. When picking your attempts and trying to be very strategic with, what your goals are for that meet. Let's say it's to win best lifter, or it's to, get a national qualifying total. There's so many different things that go into one, picking your attempts, two, strategically planning your warm-ups, three, keeping track of what all the other lifters are doing, making sure that you are, in the appropriate order, and when your platform is ready. Like, there's so many things to be thinking about. And when you're in that moment, right, like your brain kind of goes somewhere else as an athlete, right? Like, you're not thinking clearly. You just come off the high, on the platform because you just did a, awesome lift or whatever the case may be. You're not thinking about numbers. You're not thinking about strategy. Like, you're just on that high, right? So if you do have to go in and self handle, my like one biggest piece of advice would be to go in with a solid game plan and know exactly what your numbers are going to be. That's not saying that they won't change, like as the meet progresses, right? Because 9 times out of 10, your second and your third attempt are going to change, but you have to go in there with a game plan in advance. Otherwise, you're going to be shooting yourself in the foot trying to figure all that out on the fly.
Yep. And I mean, you mentioned it kind of like that lifter's high. Your adrenaline is pumping. Like you are not going to be thinking clearly. Your entire frontal lobe is going to be
Mm-hmm.
destroyed at that point. And honestly, like it's not really that hard to just have somebody in your corner that's like helping you with those selections. So for me too, something that you mentioned, the game plan going in, like if it were me, I would, I mean, plan as much as you can, kind of like what Ashley said. But like, if you have, say, like you have A, B, C, or one, two, three, like attempts, and you're like, okay, my opener is going to be this. If I miss this, this is what I'm going to jump to. If I don't, or if I make it, then this is what I'm going to jump to. Obviously, you don't want to be thinking that you're going to miss it, but you also like need to plan because weird stuff happens on the
Yeah,
platform, right? Um, but again, like kind of like what Ashley said, me personally, like I I live this stuff daily, and I wouldn't want to try to handle myself out of meat.
absolutely. That's honestly, like I said, if you can avoid it, absolutely avoid it. I mean, even if you have, a friend who's familiar with the sport and you kind of give them a rundown, like, and tell them exactly what they need to do, that's almost better than trying to, quite honestly. I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. I've handled myself at a meet, I've had handlers at a meet. And honestly, the ones that have the handlers are going to be more successful and just have a smoother day overall and a more, exciting and fun experience in the meet.
Yeah, if I go into a meet like trying to self handle myself, or even just like a like a mock meet day in the gym, I'm
Yeah,
gonna YOLO the shit out of that and just like shoot myself in the foot. Like it's like ego lifting for me is kind of a thing.
I think
So
it's us.
yeah. So anyway, okay. Real quick before we lose it in the comments, with medical knowledge always progressing, why do they still use BMI, dude? No freaking clue.
Who
It
knows?
is the most useless bullshit I've ever seen. Like, um, I'm sure Ashley and I know that I'm marked as obese,
Oh,
and
I'm these two.
yeah, I was gonna say, I'm sure with all your muscle mass, like you're also marked as obese. Um, yeah, no clue. The medical community is very progressed in some areas, and then it's like we're back in the Stone Ages on something. So like, I wish I had a better answer, but I don't. I also fight that though. I'm like, really? Like, okay. I'm like, I'm not obese, but okay. But
Especially when there's so many other, more accurate and relevant tools of measurement. It's crazy that that's being used.
yeah, if I'm going to be very blunt, I would say it's coming down to laziness because like if you do skin folds or something like that takes effort and that takes time to like learn that skill. And there is user error with that, and so like with BMI, all you do is like plug it into this equation, this calculation, and then it shoots you out a number. Like the computer software system literally does it for you. So, um, yeah. And then they're not gonna want to do like DEXAs on you every time because that's not like cost efficient. So that's my best guess.
Yeah. I mean, medical industry is a bit, and if you think like a business, things start to make more sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So okay. You had another question around meats, correct?
Yep. So how to pick your meat attempts. So if you're working with your coach is going to do this for you, or else they should be. But just kind of a general rule, for your first attempt, especially for the squat, it's really going to set the tone for the entire meet. So you do not want to set yourself up for failure. You want to make sure that that first attempt you can hit even first lifting day. Um, and especially since with your meet attempts, once you pick a number and once you attempt it, you cannot go any lower. So if you miss that first attempt, you're stuck with it. You got to try it again, right? You can't go down. So, right around 92% is what I recommend for most people for their first time. So, and also within your programming, usually somewhere between like 30 to 40 days out from your meet, you're going to be testing what your 1 rep max is, either like actually going to failure or doing a 3 rep max, and then your coach can calculate what your estimated 1 rep is. But based on those numbers are how you're going to be choosing your attempt. So 92% of whatever that tested 100% was 30 to 40 days prior. And then for your second attempt, um, again, this is where like there's a little bit of variation because it really just depends on what the first attempt felt like, what it looked like, the intensity level, and also, if you are competing to win your weight class, you also have to be very aware of what other lifters within your weight class are going to be attempting. So, but in general, I would say about 97% to 98% for your second attempt. And then for your third, right around 104, with the exception of bench press. So anytime I have put a lifter or myself like attempted 104 on a bench press, you never get it. It's great for squat and deadlift, but for bench press, I usually go right around 102, maybe 102 and a half.
Yeah, and I think kind of circling back to that first point, like if you are working with coach and they go to your meet, like that's obviously the most ideal. Plus, like as a lifter, if you've done a meet before, you kind of know like how your body responds.
Yeah.
I've known people that they completely shut down in meets. Like they are either nervous to fail or they just like can't handle center stage or whatever it is. Or some people are like, hey, I hit like 100 kilos in the gym, but like my last meet I smoked like 120. Like it's just like insane things like that. There's so many other variables that go into consideration. Like if you had to cut weight, if you had to do XYZ. So I think like having a coach that has experience there too is you know very important, kind of circling back to like that first point or that first question that Ashley answered. So it's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah. And, like you said, especially if it's a first lift, you have no idea how you're going to mentally or physically respond under those types of conditions, right? Like, so during a meet prep, we try and keep conditions as close to meet day as possible. However, like, you're not lifting people, you're not being judged. Like, there's a lot of other factors that go into it that you just can't recreate during the.
People aren't staring at you like this. Like,
You are?
no, I said people aren't.
It's
Like in
amazing.
the gym.
Yeah. So you don't have all these people staring at you, right? So, I lost my train of thought. Like those types of things you can't recreate, right? So when you hit that first attempt, again, you should have your second attempt planned, but you very well could take a huge left turn and do something totally different. So I had in my most recent meet with one of my competitors, smoked squat. We got to bench. His first attempt on bench, which is something he can hit for reps easy, was a huge, huge struggle. Huge struggle. And I was like, oh, Lord. And, we ended up going with a second attempt that failed. And then I ended up just scratching his third attempt, which was not at all like in the game plan whatsoever. Like, you never want to scratch an attempt, right? But I knew that he was going to be able to pick those numbers back up on the deadlift. So strategically, it made more sense to just take the lower number on the bench, and then save the energy for a bigger total with the deadlift. So like stuff like that happens all the time.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, perfect. Um, Real quick, if you guys have questions, drop them below so we can answer 'em. One of the questions I got was, how do you know when to push and when not to? So this is like a really, really, really tricky and specific question because honestly, like, as much of an annoying answer as it is, it truly depends. Is it something that's been going on for a while, or is it just like all of a sudden, like this just randomly flared up? So for me, I like to use a stoplight approach. So if, like if you're sitting at like a 1 or 2 pain, it's just kind of annoying. Go ahead and lift. Just be more conservative and like keep things lighter. But if it gets above a 5 or even a 4, depending on like the person's pain tolerance, drop it. Like one training day is not going to kill you, right? If you have to back off or not do it. Um, if you're starting with like a higher pain number, like if you're a 3 or 4, obviously it's not going to take very much to bump you up to a 5. So what I like to do in that scenario is like, hey, is this something that's like super worth it? Like, is this training day absolutely crucial for you to hit? If so, then okay, like we can go in, we can hit the lift as planned. Just know that like if we have above a 1 or 2 spike in pain, we're probably gonna like drop back or just drop the lift that day. If it's not like super crucial for you to hit like a comp squat or a comp bench or something like that, then like let's change the variation. If somebody has hip pain on a bench, okay, maybe we'll do feet up bench, maybe we'll do Larson, maybe we'll do something, or floor press, something that takes that hip out of the equation where it's not like super necessary. If somebody has a shoulder injury and they're trying to squat, I usually use like safety bar for that because it takes like that stress on the shoulder out of it. Um, or like low back pain, maybe squat to a box, squat 2 pins, do something. Tempo squats. There's so many different ways that you can still train with pain, and that's like one of the biggest things that I try to talk about regularly because so often I think powerlifters and weightlifters, strongman competitors, whoever it is, they get told like, hey, if it hurts, don't do it. Just take like a week off the gym, pop all these ibuprofen, and you're good to go. Well, that's not at all it.
Right.
So there are ways that we can train around it, but it is super important to like have a medical professional who actually like is supportive of you lifting to like help you kind of tailor your program. It could be like a very experienced coach who's like, okay, hey, like I've seen this a lot before. I have this PT in my back pocket. Like, let's do this. Or maybe you go to a PT or a chiropractor or somebody who deals with people who have pain like on a regular basis. But just know that there really is like ways to train around pain and like still work on your strength. And if you have to take a day off, like your legs aren't going to be like a balloon that gets popped. Like they're not just gonna shrivel away. It's one day.
Yeah. Well, you know how us strength athletes are. We're going to lose our gains if we don't train every single day.
And if you don't get your protein and your carbs in within 0.2 seconds of putting
Absolutely. We can touch on that piece of it later. I just think that's funny that people still think that. But now, like one thing that I think you and I had this conversation on our podcast or one of the times that we talked, when it comes to people like athletes who are impressed, right, and they're experiencing pain of some sort, and they're 3 weeks out, like what would you advise them to do in that particular situation?
You say 3 weeks out?
Just like close to the meet, we'll say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, at that point, it's like it's really kind of taking a look at the program and like the training volume and stuff like that. See if there's anything there, that we can tweak and modify. If it's something that you know if you come to me and you're like, hey, this hurts, and I'm like, okay, how long has this been going on? Okay, cool. Does it only hurt when you're lifting? Okay, cool. Does it only hurt with this variation? Okay, cool. Then we kind of know like a game plan, like, hey, like comp squat is super important, but what can we find that's like very close to that that's going to keep you on that right, on the right path, but also allow your body to recover. I had this talk with somebody yesterday who they were having pain and they have a comp coming up in August. And I'm like, okay, I hear you. It's very valid that you're concerned that you're going to lose out on all these gains because, like you said, like if you can't comp lift, like people freak out. Um, and I'm not making fun of that. Like it's valid and it's real. But like just know that there are ways that you can maintain your strength. But if you're hurt at the meet, like you're not gonna do as well as you can, even if you have like the world's best adrenaline pumping through you. Like you're probably gonna pay for it after the fact, or you're not gonna perform as well as you want, and you're gonna be kicking yourself. So for me, if we can modify the lift to a very, very, very similar variation, sweet. That's what we're going to do. We're going to say, hey, instead of with shoulder pain, instead of doing a barbell back squat, maybe we use a buffalo bar or something like that where it's very similar, but we're not stressing that shoulder where it's like getting cranky again.
Right.
If it's something like a back squat, maybe we do like off the pins or something like that. But there are ways that even if you have pain, like in a certain like range of motion in a squat or deadlift or bench, like you can still do like I like to do top down, or I like to do bottoms up, or like a super light isometric hold in that position. So there are ways. It just kind of depends on like you, the person, the lifter, and like whoever you go to. In my opinion.
Yeah. With all of the variations that you were talking about, box squats, rack pulls, whatever. Those are all things that I program in for my clients anyways, just because like the intensity for strength programs is so high and it is really taxing on the body that on every time you squat, if you're squatting every single time, like you're going to burn out. You're going to. And there are so many other benefits other than just injury prevention from doing those modifications or doing those variations with the barbell. It can really highlight some of the weak points in the lift, right? And then you can isolate that and train that and build your overall squat or your overall deadlift. So there is a lot to be said for doing those variations. I follow a lot of like Westside Barbell training method, like the 80-20. So for most of my athletes, I do 20%, the actual movement, the squat, bench, and the deadlift, and then 80% everything else. So whether that is a, variation of a barbell movement, accessories, or mobility to like really target those weak areas in the lift to help build that overall strength. I found that overall that's more effective than just squatting incorrectly and continuing to, not isolate that weakness and just compounding the issue, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I mean, there's no point to like keep banging your head against the wall if there's a simple solution. And sometimes like if you can make an appointment with like a PT, a chiro, somebody that you trust that like supports the barbell, there's a good chance that like you can get out of pain pretty quickly and keep in your like lifts. I had a guy who was having like insane knee pain for like months, right? I had him come in. I had him do one thing. I made sure that everything was okay. I watched him move. I had him do one thing, and his knee pain was like gone. Like the front of his knee, it was gone. I'm not saying that like my hands are magic. I'd love to say that, but like if you can have somebody who understands the barbell movements and like understands like some areas that commonly trip people up, then there's no reason that you should avoid going to somebody who does support like you lifting and things like that, because they might be able to actually fix it like that day, just like that, and then you don't even have to worry about doing variations.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes it's something just as simple as changing your stance or changing the way that you set, or you just could be lifting incorrectly and the trajectory of the bar is off, or whatever. It could be a million simple things that are just irritating this one little spot, that once you fix that, the whole entire problem is solved.
Yeah. And thankfully Ashley is a badass coach who also believes in PT, right? So I know like on the podcast that we recorded together, which small plug, you should go listen to, Um, what's that?
Raising the bar is what it's called.
Yes.
Yeah.
I will make sure to tag it on my story. But yeah, like Ashley's pro PT, like she's had good success. So you also have to find something like that where you can have a coach and a PT or a coach and a chiro or some kind of relationship, because at the end of the day, as a lifter, like it's about you, right? Like it's not about your coach, it's not about your coach's ego, it's not about your PT, it's not about your PT's ego. It's literally about what's best for you. And like Ashley and I have conversations, we did a podcast, we're doing this, like we obviously kind of like each other, so like we would work together really well in my opinion. So like you need to find a dynamic like that where you can have like both parties kind of like doing like teamwork approach, right? Ooh, Ashley, do you see that comment?
I do.
Fire away.
All right. So all of those pieces of equipment when you're training, they are meant to support what your body is naturally doing. So I don't think it's bad to use those things. However, I don't think a lifter should rely on a weight belt or knee sleeves or anything like that. Um, you need to be able to properly brace your core under a weighted load with or without a belt. And if you don't know how to do that, adding your belt is not going to make a difference. It doesn't make any difference at all, because you still have to brace and push the actual belt in order for it to do anything. So I say train as long as you can without it. And do all of the necessary training, core strengthening, in order to build up the erectors and the abs and obliques and everything in order to be able to support that weight before you start putting band-aids on things.
Yep. For me, I don't usually have any of my lifters do this unless they're above like 80% and have
Yeah.
proven to me that they can like handle their shit, right? Um, with weightlifting belts, oh, you knew that this would get me fired up. um, so they're not gonna do shit to protect your spine, honestly. Like, there's a little bit there that it'll help, but like the common thought is that, hey, it's going to keep my back from exploding. Your back's going to explode if it's going to explode. Like, that's kind of the hard and fast of it. The belt's not going to do anything to protect it. The biggest thing that you get is being able to have something sturdy to brace against, right? So, like, if I'm trying to brace, okay, like, you're still going to get a lot, but you might not get, like, that extra 1 or 2% that you would get if you had something firm to, like, press against. So, like, weightlifting belts are kind of a pet peeve of mine, but I use them, if that makes sense, because I just think that people like use them for the wrong reasons. I know when I was getting started lifting, like I don't want to throw my dad under the bus, but he's like, make sure you wear your lifting belt because it's going to protect you. Like, bless your heart, you're so intelligent, but not in this area. Like, it's not going to help you. It's not going to like protect your back or anything like that. So.
And it's funny because you see this mainly with, I'm not calling anybody out here, but you see this mainly with bodybuilders, like walk around the gym, their weight belt on. And I never really understood it. I'm like, are we doing like a waist trainer type thing? Or like, I don't understand why they do it. Like you're here doing, easy curl biceps or, whatever, um, with a weight belt on. I don't really know what it is.
No, and honestly, if you can walk around in your weightlifting belt and not take it off, like
Exactly. It's
you're
not
literally not even doing anything. So
when you like if you see powerlifters in the gym when we're wearing our weight belts, most of us have the lever belts because they're easier to lock and unlock. We lock it the second we get under the bar. The second we are out from under the bar, it comes unlocked because you should not be able to breathe in that thing. It should be so tight. It should be so uncomfortable. Again, to like create that extra layer of support to brace against. But if you're able to walk around in the gym with it on and not take it off throughout your entire training session, it's not doing anything.
it's just a cute accessory at that point.
Yeah.
And it's not even cute. So don't do it.
Well, I guess.
What's that?
I'm just trying to think of reasons.
um, the wrist wraps are very similar to the belts in my opinion. Like it kind of just helps to like provide something for your like your tendons and everything to like push against. Maybe a little extra oomph there, like if you get it up super high. But even then, like I I don't do that unless I'm gonna be super heavy with Olympic weightlifting or powerlifting because I like right now my training split is doing both, and I won't do it unless I'm super heavy.
Yeah. Yeah, usually right around like 82, 85 is where I would be okay with someone putting on any type of wraps, belt, etc.
Yeah. Knee sleeves for me, like it kind of varies maybe. Like if you feel like you absolutely have to keep your knees warm, like okay, like if they're the single ply, if you're freaking doing the powerlifting thick ones, like you shouldn't need that just to help you get up out of like a 135 squat, like unless that's like a max for you. Like if it's super light and like not even measurable on the RPE, don't wear them. But I know some lifters who like will wear them as just the like as a way to keep their knees warm. But if you are relying on those to make your knees not hurt, come see me because that shouldn't be happening either.
Exactly. With knee sleeves, I never train in knee sleeves ever. I'll use a belt when I get up into those heavier percentages, but I will save my knee sleeves for when I get to the meet. And I don't always recommend this unless you are very familiar and know how you lift with equipment. But if you don't train with them to some degree, but um, I don't use them until the day of the meet because if you're not used to them, it adds so much little extra bounce at the bottom. Like I like that little extra support and that little bump at the bottom, especially on the second and third attempt. It really makes a difference.
Yep.
But only if you're.
Good question. Um, there was another one. Oh, it was more so a thought, like that a question that got asked, like kind of inspired. So it was more so along the lines like, "Hey, I have knee pain. Like, what should I do?" Okay, first of all, it's a very blanket. Like, it would be a very blanket statement for me to tell you what to do, right?
Yeah.
Other than like, go see somebody that you trust, right? Like, that's the best advice I can give you at this moment without knowing anything else. Um, just know that if you go to YouTube, if you go to your favorite rehab page, which should be mine, but any other page, then you're like, okay, like what do they have for knees? Just know that one, even if you truly have a knee problem, it might not work for you. It might make it worse. And then also too, like sometimes like 90% of the time, I would be comfortable saying, like, if somebody has knee pain, it might not be coming from the knee. Like, it's coming from, like, the hips, the ankles, or something weird that you're doing in the movement itself, but not necessarily, like, a structural injury to the knee. Same thing with back pain. I can't tell you how many people, like powerlifters in particular, that I've had that have, like, low back pain, and if you watch their deadlift, they're like their hips are up like this, right? Um,
And
so
that's a very common issue that I correct all the time.
yeah, but one, it could just be an awareness thing, but two, it could be still coming from the hips. Like you could be compensating in that high position because you can't physically get down low and put more stress on the hips. Maybe it's tight, maybe they're pinching, maybe it's just not comfortable, but a lot of times I see people with low back pain, especially on deadlifts or even squats, and it's more of a compensatory thing because they just don't have the motion in their hips. So again, like it's hard to just say like, "Hey, my knee hurts. What should I do?" It's hard to figure out what's going on without actually like having those questions, like asking them answered, or like doing an assessment or something like that. And that's honestly like not not a way for me to get more clients. Like I don't even care if you go to me, but like just know that, hey, like if you have knee pain, go figure out why. Like don't just pull something off the internet and think that it's gonna work, or go to knees over toes guys and see if like whatever he's doing, whatever his program is, don't just assume it's going to work because it's for knees. So figure out what's going on with that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you get questions like that in your inbox all the time, and so do I. Like, just very general things like, you know, my low back hurts in a deadlift. Like, just saying that, there's, like you said, there's so much that could be causing that, and there's no blanket answer for any one person. Like, what could be causing low back pain for me in a deadlift is could very well could be a very different issue from what would be causing back pain. So we can't give you like a blanket answer on questions like that as much as we would like to, and as much as you would like to hear a quick fix to those types of situations. But there really isn't a quick fix for it, and there really isn't a one size fits all answer. Like, we need to evaluate you from head to toe, because I think, Kaytlyn, you may have mentioned this before, but usually the pain is only the symptom of what the actual problem is.
Yep.
So like, low back issues are rarely actually coming from the low back. It's very rare.
Yeah.
So, it does take a full evaluation and assessment in order to figure out what the best course of action would be for any one person.
Or like, an assessment by a rehab professional, sweet. Or it could honestly just take a lifting analysis by somebody who's like super trained in that area. I know Ashley does lifting analysis. And so, like, that's one thing that you can take advantage of. And it's not like it's like, oh my gosh, they're going to tell me not to lift. No, like, I can pretty much guarantee that Ashley and I are going to figure out, like, what's going on before we tell you, hey, you know what? Actually, let's take just a small breather and see what's going on. And, like, to me, that is, like, I would rather put, this is a little gruesome, but I would rather put, like, a knife in my thigh, like, on Talladega Nights before I told somebody to, like, take time off the gym. I just don't think it works, and I think it makes it worse. So unless somebody's, like, severely injured, I'm not going to tell them to do that. So,
I mean, we've heard it before, and it's true, but movement is medicine.
yeah. Something I wanted to highlight, too, you'll see a lot of, like, free powerlifting programs, free weightlifting programs, and things like that. But that doesn't take in the most important factor in the equation, and that is you as a lifter. I've had people who, like, will get, like, knee pain or back pain or whatever just because, like, the volume is stupid. They go from doing nothing to 100%. Or, hey, maybe, maybe this person can't actually do, like, bench with a super solid leg drive because, like, that isometric movement of knee extension, like, maybe that hurts them over a long period of time. Or, like,
Like,
everybody's
there is something that experienced powerlifters struggle with too. So to expect someone who's never been coached in that sport before to be able to incorporate all of these more advanced techniques and do it correctly, honestly, it's just like setting them up for failure.
Yep. Yeah, and that's where, like, the super individualized approach, like, really comes into play. Get a coach that you trust. On my story, I mentioned, like, 4 questions that you should ask before you, like, sign up with somebody, and, like, you really need to, like, fill them out and, like, say, hey, like, what's your approach with this? Or, hey, like, what's your process like? Hey, like, do you check in with me, or are you just, like, writing me a program and then never talking to me again? Like, you need to be knowing these things in order to, like, make the best selection for you. And honestly, like, again, I don't care if you choose me. I don't care if you go to somebody down the street. I really don't care. But a lot of times you actually get what you pay for, right? So if you pay, like, $5 for this coaching app that's going to be super great, and you think it's going to solve all the world's problems, like, it's probably not. It might get you hurt, might not give you the results you want, and, like, that's that. So just know that, like, highly personalized, individualized programming is the bee's knees.
Absolutely. I could not agree with you more. And, when I do consultations with people or just, talk to people in the gym or whatnot, I hear so often like, oh, I'm working with a coach. And of course I'm going to ask questions like, what are they doing with you? What type of programming are you doing? What type of nutrition? And it's like, oh, well, they just send me my program on an Excel sheet once a week. And I'm like, really? Like, that's not coaching. That's just an expensive program that you're following. So there really is like so much value in the coaching aspect, and like all my clients can attest to this. Like, it is even some of my clients I've never met, right? Because I train remotely, but I have developed such a connection with these people, and I'm so invested in their success and their progress that you don't get that from an app, and you don't get that from an Excel spreadsheet. And I think that it's really something that sets really good quality coaches apart from the rest, is that we do have that passion, right? And we are so invested in our clients' success, and their success is our success, really.
Yep, 100%. Just just a quick little demonstration of that. Okay, so my lifters, Megan is on. Her daughter's name is Waverly. Her wife owns a badass like clothing hat shop. She actually made these. I know that about her. Let's see. Monica, she's not a lifter of mine, but somebody that I actually care about very, very much. And she's dealing with a couple things, and I can tell you how many doctors she's been to and what they've told her, and probably like 90% of her symptoms. And she's not even coaching, like, she's not even getting coaching from me. Um, Sherry is somebody who she's a nurse, and Sherry, I know you're watching, so you're not just a nurse. We had that conversation today. Um, but like, I know these things about her. Her dog's name is Zeus. Like, I know these things because I actually do care. Ben, he's saying hi right now. He's the most badass dude you'll ever meet, the nicest guy, and like, honestly, he had to step away from programming for a second, and it killed me because I love him that much. So like what Ashley was saying, even if you don't work with somebody in person, like you want to be able to develop that relationship. And for me, that is super important. On my consult calls or my discovery calls, I tell people, hey, like we're going to use this analogy of a coaching rope where it's like maybe cheesy, but if you're in the middle of an ocean and you're like, Kaytlyn, help me, and I throw you this rope, if you don't grab onto it and I don't grab onto it, it's not going to do you a bit of good. It's like such a two-way street. Like you have to trust me and I have to trust you as a lifter. So, like if something comes up, I'm trusting you that you're going to tell me. If you're like, hey, this hurts, you need to trust me that I'm going to help you get like through that, right? And so like having that relationship and not just like an Excel spreadsheet program is like, I can't even begin to like describe how important it is.
Yeah. And that two-way street, really good point. That trust factor does, is like, as a coach, I can't coach what I don't know, right? So as an athlete, if I'm giving you your meal plan because we're trying to cut you down into a lower weight class, and you're telling me that you're following the program, but you're not actually following the program, and the results aren't matching, I'm going to make adjustments to your nutrition program based on the information that you were telling me. And if that information is not accurate, I can't help you the way that I need to. So, like, on the flip side, we're all human, you know. I eat things I shouldn't eat. Sometimes I want to skip a training day. Like, it happens, right? And that's completely okay. But you have to be able to feel comfortable to have those conversations up front, because I can't help you if you don't tell me what's actually going on.
Yep. Yeah, and like my coach, he knows I'm such a type A scheduler. Like
Oh
he
my!
knows he knows that about me. What's that?
I said that's why we're friends. I'm the exact same way.
Exactly. So like for me, he knows, hey, like this is coming up. I'm just gonna tell you so you can plan for it, so you can like make adjustments as you need. Because at the end of the day, like one of my biggest priorities is my clients and making sure that they're getting what they need or what they're needing. So if something comes up and throws me for a curveball personally, like it's going to affect my clients, and my coach knows that. Like I've told him that before. He knows like, hey, like be prepared to spend a little extra time in the gym this day because this might happen. We're doing 2 days right now, like I mentioned in my story, and I was like, dude,
I'm sorry.
no, yeah. I actually kind of enjoy it, but he's like, or I told him, hey, I love the 2 days. It's perfect. Like, honestly, I feel like I'm so much more effective, like, with my lifts because I'm having that break. However, driving to and from the gym, which is 20 minutes away from me, is not effective, right? Like, that's a lot. That's like 40 minutes that I could be doing something.
Right.
I don't want to stay at the gym from like 6 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock at night to get my training in. So I'm like, hey, is there anything we can do for, workouts at home? Like I have equipment here. I just don't have like cables and stuff like that. And he's like, yeah, sure. Like that's no problem. But if I didn't trust him or if he didn't have that buy-in with me, I wouldn't be able to do that. So he might just think, oh, hey, she's actually doing the workouts, no problem. But in reality, like, maybe I was skipping them.
Yeah. And, and the reality is the better that relationship, the more success the client's going to have overall. Like,
Yep.
even if you skip a day, if you eat something you're not supposed to, whatever it is, like, it's not going to be the end of the world. Like, if we know about it, we can still help you through it.
Right. Yep, exactly. Is it optimal to work out at the same time all the time or better squeeze it in when you have time? I think that depends on the person. For me, like, again, going back to my clients are kind of like, my biggest priority, like throughout the day, like throughout the working hours. And so if I have something that's going to, kind of affect my training there, am I going to get upset and worked up about it? No, because at the end of the day, like I'm still getting the work in. Now, a caveat to this, and then I'll let Ashley jump in. If you train fasted all the time, which God bless your soul if you do, because that's terrible. But if you train fasted and then come in at night and work out on a full stomach, or you're used to training at night on a full stomach and then work out fasted, like you're probably going to notice quite a big dip just in your overall performance, right? But at the end of the day, if it's like an hour or two, or if you have to shift from like mid morning to later in the morning or early in the morning, like as long as you can keep as many variables the same, like if I work out at 5 a.m., I know I need to get up a little earlier to make sure that I can get a meal, it can digest, and kind of go from there. But what are your thoughts,
Yeah.
Ashley?
I mean, I think that consistency is key, and that's going to be, the success to any type of training program. So, if you have the ability to go at the same time and create that routine for yourself, it's going to be a lot easier to maintain that consistency. Now, for people who have rotating schedules or where that's just not an option, then you need to just find what's going to work best for you. I think planning in advance as far as like the way that your week's going to look. Like I take 2 rest days every single week. They aren't always the same day. It really just depends on my schedule. If I have a lot of calls on one particular day and I know I'm probably not going to make it to the gym till after 3 or 4, which is I just don't work out after 4. I just it never works out well for me. Then that's probably going to be my rest day. But then it might be a different day. So planning in advance, taking a look at your schedule, figuring out what work best for you and your lifestyle, and creating the routine and creating the consistency is really working. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's two sides to that consistency coin, right? So like consistently hitting like the same time as a workout, but if that's going to cause you so much stress that you're like mentally fried, you're like physically like, oh my gosh, like I am feeling the effects of this stress, like it's not worth it. It's better to go have a workout at a different time than it is to just like skip the workout altogether because you didn't get the optimal time, right? So consistency there plays in a couple different areas. But yeah, I mean, obviously, if you have no responsibilities, nothing that can ever go wrong, like train at the same time every single day, eat the same thing every single day, but just know that we're all humans and sometimes it's not always feasible.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, okay. One of my favorite people is on, Andrea, but other than that, does anybody else have any questions? Comments, concerns, snide remarks, any of that stuff? Okay. Did you have any other questions submitted?
Nope, that was it.
All right.
Get them all.
So, okay. Well, if you guys have any questions, shoot them over to either one of us, and we will be happy to answer them. If you guys liked this, let us know because, I mean, I don't know about Ashley, but I would be willing to hop back on with her because she's pretty cool. But other than that, I hope you guys have an awesome day, and I will talk to you guys soon. See ya.
Thank you.